I'd like to ask a question. What is the cost of being loyal to your politicians and to your pastors in the black community? What does it cost you? That's something we really need to think about. What's the cost of your loyalty? What do you have to show for your loyalty? And one of the things I've been talking about over the years is, should we really be focusing on political positions, or should we be focusing on economic freedom? Because after the Civil Rights Act was passed, we had about 1,500 black politicians at the time. And I think at the turn of the 21st century, we were over 10,000. So we got a lot of political positions, but what's improved in our communities? You really need to think hard about that. Do you think you really influence your politicians? Or, as I like to call them, your misrepresentatives, without having collective economics? One or two of us having strong sources of economics is just not enough. We need collective economics, because our politicians ignore us if we don't. And I know right now, as we prepare for this 2020 circus, you have 25 clowns trying to get the nod for the Democratic candidacy. 25. And in 2016, they lost a lot of the black vote. A lot of blacks went and punched the ticket for Donald Trump, and the rest of them just stayed home because they are tired of what the Democratic Party is offering black folks, which is nothing but a lot of hot air. And right now, we have Kamala, or Kamala, however they pronounce her name, Harris, talking about reparations. We have Elizabeth Warren talking about reparations. She even came out the other day and said that if elected, she's going to even talk about giving gay people reparations. We have good old Bernie Sanders talking about reparations. We got Cory Booker talking about if he's elected, he's going to take your guns, and if you don't give them up, he's going to send you to prison. We have Sheila Jackson Lee talking about reparations. And that's all they're doing. They're talking about reparations. And think about this. Sheila Jackson Lee is down here in Houston where I live. And if I'm not mistaken, because at one point when I got out of high school, I believe Sheila Jackson Lee might have been the congressperson for the area I lived in. So we're talking, or maybe right after I got out of high school. I think she's been in political office since 1991, if I'm not mistaken. So for almost 30 years, Sheila Jackson Lee has been a misrepresentative. The Congressional Black Caucus was founded in 1971. Up to this point, none of these people have talked about reparations. Even when you had your black president, he said himself reparations wasn't something we need to talk about. But we sure loved him. He made sure to make that clear. And all these folks are doing is talking. They're not going to do anything. If you want to see if they're serious about reparations, tell them cut every black person a check, no less than $1 million each, and then we'll vote for it. And you know what the answer is going to be? Well, you need to elect me first, and then we'll talk about it. Because they're not going to do anything. They're just trying to get blacks back on a Democratic plantation, and we are not smart enough to recognize what they're doing. They know how to move us emotionally. We're the most easily manipulated people in this country. And we think anything that's opposite of Republican means friend to the black. And they know we can't think. So they just treat us any kind of way. I mean, like I said, Elizabeth Warren's already thrown a gay tag in there for reparations. And blacks were the most mistreated people in this country. And all of the other groups, races, cultures, and I know the Irish are going to complain, but Irish weren't really slaves. They were in a position of servitude, but they'll claim slavery. But all of these other organizations, groups, races, and cultures have been compensated. Not just them, but their descendants as well. And the rallying cry from white America right now is, I never owned a slave. And I'm not saying you did. But we're talking about being fair and equitable. And I have mixed feelings on the issue, but I'll address that another day, because I'm talking about what has our loyalty cost us. Do you believe opening businesses in our communities that are truly viable would have a greater impact on a community than begging a politician for help from the government? I mean, and when I say viable, I'm talking about something more than the barbershop, the Black Country Club for men, the beauty shop, the Black Country Club for women, fried chicken places, hole-in-the-wall clubs, and most of you know what hole-in-the-wall places are. They're open 1 week. Some of them sustain themselves for a number of years, but they're open 1 week, and the next week they're shut down and they're open up under a new name. Grocery stores that offer a little bit better selection when it comes to produce and meat. Something other than, we have a doctor's office that's been here. I mean, when I was in school and had to get my physicals for football, I would go see him. Now he's been in the community for, at least 35, 40 years. But he's only open over here 2 days a week. He has an office on another part of town. I'll let you figure that out. But when I talk about viable business, I'm talking about something that's going to be sustaining, something that's going to help keep the value up in our communities. But do you really have access to your politicians at any other time of the year except when they get close to an election? They don't have anything to do with you once the election is over. I saw a picture of our current mayor at some parade riding on back of a Cadillac, and down here in Texas, Houston especially, they always say we put the elbows, the rims, or as one of my buddies call them, curb fillers, on our wheels. And he's riding on back of the Cadillac with the curb fillers or elbows, waving at the crowd and all that, trying to make sure he keeps his hood points in check. But that's how they do us. They play us like that all the time. I remember my current councilman, who's actually thrown his hat in for mayor, had a meeting around the corner from my house, and I went, and the meeting didn't start on time. And he made the statement, for all of y'all that have been here on time and we didn't we're not started yet, after the meeting's over, we're going to give y'all some hog maws and greens. And of course, we're so stupid that we just cracked up laughing. I got pissed off because that's an insult to me. But that's how they treat us. And we respond by laughing. We respond by encouraging them, and that's why they keep doing it. But by focusing on selected misrepresentatives without party loyalty, can you see any area that is predominantly black or minority that has actually improved? You check that out. I mean, I know in my area, which is predominantly black, I haven't. As a matter of fact, back in 2014, they came and started putting sidewalks on the street near me, the street right around, I live in a curve, and the street that mine curves into, they put sidewalks halfway across my neighbor's right next door yard, and went around the curve with the sidewalks. That project was completed August 29th, 2014 on both sides of the street, and we're still waiting on sidewalks. Can't get him to respond or his office to respond, but he's running for mayor now, and we love him. Well, they love him, because I don't love any politician. Has crime decreased in the black community? I mean, they openly kill each other in public now, and they don't even care anymore. You know, so you need to be careful how you answer that question, because many of you don't know the answer to that question, or many of you do know the answer to that question, and that's why you actually move out of the black community. You move out of the black community, you move away from the people you love so much, and then you all of a sudden become pro-black. You want to talk about black issues, but you ran away from black people. So don't come at me like that. Have the home values increased in the black areas? We also know the answer to that, because there's an article that's been circulating around that tells us that home values in the black communities are undervalued on purpose. And you can purchase my book, but hey, what do I know? From Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or directly from me. If you like an autographed copy, you can email me at myronjones@gmail.com, MYRAN Jones@gmail.com. And I go into detail about that very situation as to why our homes are undervalued and why we complain of gentrification, even though we ran away from the area that we say they gentrified. We're creating to the gentrification issue because we don't have any loyalty. We don't have any pride in our own communities. We want to talk about black this, black that. But a lot of you are not even around to do anything with black people. You want to do things with your black people that live in your integrated neighborhoods. And I mean, I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm just saying, don't sit there and tell me you pro-black and your face is never in a black community doing anything. And, you know, as I said, in our communities, do government maintenance projects get completed in a timely manner? And that's why I just mentioned that about the sidewalk. Do you think crime would increase or decrease in our communities if our parents owned businesses and then they employed the youth in the neighborhoods and taught them the values of respect for other people, other people's rights, and other people's properties? Because once you have people in the community that have something to lose, all of a sudden the mentality changes. Do you think if our kids saw positive examples to look up to, that they will be a little more interested in setting goals, finding a purpose for their lives, and developing that purpose? Do you believe if we had more men, and I mean real men, I'm not talking about male specimens, I'm not talking about those specimens that want to be male, you know, going against their natural biology, I'm talking about real men. If we had more men setting positive examples in our homes, in our neighborhoods, do you think our neighborhoods would thrive and flourish a little bit better than they're doing now? Do you think having more men in our home would keep these pedophiles out of our home, from raping our little girls and boys? Do you think if we had real men in our homes and neighborhoods that the crime would also decrease? Do you think so? I mean, it's a simple yes or no answer. Has your politician even addressed the crime in your neighborhood? I mean, we can be honest about it. I mean, you don't have to tell anybody. You can just listen to my words, and as I rattle off a few questions, you can just think in your head, yes or no. And it doesn't take long to answer. You know the answer. Has your politician done anything to help you attract viable businesses and companies into your communities? As a people, do we have any economic power or control of anything with the $1 trillion that flows through our hands every year? I mean, scratch the entertainers, scratch the athletes, because that's a very small minority. And they don't even have any economic power. I mean, LeBron James does a few things. I just saw the other day that Kevin Durant just donated $10 million to something, some school or cause or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. But outside of entertainment and sports, do we have control of anything? And we don't control sports because they're high paid, but they're still employees. And I recorded I don't know if it's an interview or just a conversation on last night with Nelson Hawkins, who runs 360 Degree Ministries, on how government has actually impacted our communities and our families. So I'm not going to get off into all of that. I'll provide you a link to that in the description box. But do you have any viable businesses and companies in your communities? We have no economic power because we have no businesses and viable businesses and companies in our communities. I mean, what could it do if we had CPA firms? And we don't need a lot, maybe one major CPA firm in the neighborhood or community. What if we had some real decent law offices in our community? Because let's face it, our young men and women are spending a lot of time in the legal system. And we talk about white people treat us so bad, but then we run to white people to represent us in the system. I mean, do what you want. I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying, what would happen if we had some great legal officers in our communities? What would happen if we had some great doctor's offices in our communities? I'm actually reading a book right now titled "Don't Let Your Doctor Kill You." And the lady that wrote this book is a doctor. And she's talking about the need for your doctor to get to know you on a personal level, because that's how you heal properly. But she talks about how the system is designed to keep finding new diagnoses so you can keep coming back to the doctors and you can keep coming back to the hospital. And the reason I'm reading the book right now because I dealt with some issues similar to that in last year, and actually still in the follow-up process with that whole system. And guess what? They keep finding new diagnoses. So you got to go see this doctor now. Do you have one? Well, let me refer you to this one. That was my very last doctor visit on last month. And the doctor that referred me was a doctor I had no need to see before I ever went in the hospital last year. But they created so much damage to me that I've been having to see this doctor on a regular basis since I got out. I have to go get lab work done every 2 months because of what they did to me. So we need to learn. We need doctors in our communities that bring back the humanitarian aspect of being a medical doctor, because that is why they were supposed to get in medicine in the first place. So we need some of those in our communities. Has your politician even talked about any of that? Of course not. Are we still complaining about the exact same issues that plagued our ancestors in spite of the explosive growth of blacks holding political positions? And like I said, right after the Civil Rights Act, 1,500 black politicians. Turn of the 21st century, over 10,000. I'm fairly certain. I bet that we're probably close to 15,000, 20,000 black politicians at this point, because it's been almost 20 years since the turn of the century. And we have all of these misrepresentatives, and we're still complaining about the exact same stuff. We're complaining because we're not paid at the same rate of whites. We're complaining because we say racism is worse. And, I even saw something Will Smith said racism didn't decrease, it's just being filmed, or something to that aspect, or something like that. Well, you still have some idiots out there. And but I would argue with anybody. I'm not going to say argue. I would debate with anybody. Racism has not gotten worse. The only reason it seems like it's gotten worse is because it's being filmed. But racism has actually decreased. We just have more real-time access to it now than our ancestors did in the past. I mean, if we just think of all the images we've seen of the maltreatment of blacks in the past, there's no way you can tell me what we're dealing with today is worse than what it was back then. I'd debate you on that at any time. And we're still complaining about it. We're still complaining about the average net worth of a black family versus the average worth of a white family. The numbers haven't changed since 1964. They're still the exact same numbers, of course adjusted for inflation, but the gap is still the same. The ironic thing is, before we got all of these misrepresentatives, we were actually making better economic advancements. Whereas you had, before the Civil Rights Act was signed, 87% of the time, if a child was born, that child was born in a house where the mother and father were both there. Today, that number is less than 30%. Before the Civil Rights Act was signed, we didn't have abortions as much. Today, we are aborting, our black ladies are aborting almost 2,000 babies per day. And Kamala Harris says if she's elected, she's gonna make it, she's gonna basically force us citizens to pay for abortions. I was just told a couple of days ago on this very issue, because I saw something that said abortion was the #1 killer last year worldwide, because 42 million reported babies were aborted. And I made the comment because the person that mentioned that, well, on the topic, said that, well, there's nothing wrong with that. She's one of these women feminazis. There's nothing wrong with that, because you complain about the women aborting the babies, but you have no means for the woman to take care of the babies if they're born. Now, do you hear how stupid that sounds? And I told her, why don't our women make more responsible choices? Do our women make the choice to give men their womb unprotected? Our women make the choice to have these babies and go have unprotected sex, knowing that they have no physical resources to take care of these kids. That's not society's problem. They need to make more responsible choices. And she responded to me that she's glad that I'm so self-righteous in telling people what to do in their private lives. And I responded to her and I said, and I'm so happy that you're so self-righteous that you think it's okay to murder our babies. So Kamala Harris said if she's elected, she's going to force us to pay for women's abortions. So by proxy, if she's going to force me to pay for women's abortions, she's actually inserted me into women's private lives. And by doing that, I have the right to say what goes on in their private lives. Because you're expecting me to pay for it. You're forcing me to pay for it. But this is what your politicians do. Your misrepresentatives. Why are we as a people so willing to fight for folks from other countries when we are still disenfranchised in the very same country? And I don't believe in inhumane treatment for anybody. But no black person had anything to say about what was going on at the border when Barack Obama was in office. A guy told me the other day, well, the way Barack did it was different than the way Trump is doing it. No, the way it was reported to you was different than the way Trump is doing it. That's the difference. Because you don't understand, Trump is made out to be the enemy. So, because you don't think again, Trump is made out to be the enemy in order to usher in somebody that's charismatic and will lead you straight to hell because you will follow somebody that's charismatic. You don't understand that. That's why I say they play on our emotions. They manipulate us real easy because we don't think. We call it what a friend of mine calls the cult of personality. And color is more important than morality. Charisma is more important than morality. Party loyalty is more important than morality. And I'm not saying that you should go out and automatically vote for Republicans. I'm not saying that at all. Because I read something in the book, The Road to Serfdom. And I mean, it's not an easy book to read. I mean, because you have to really be interested in learning to read a book like that. And in that book, Hayek says something to the degree of, although we may sometimes be forced to choose between different evils, they both remain evils. And so you can't judge the varying levels of evil. And so why are we so willing to fight for other folks who won't stand up and fight for us and fight with us? I mean, and nothing is 100% because we're not talking about whole races of people, because you have individuals that are good on all sides. You have individuals that are bad on all sides. Don't come to me talking about all black people need to stick together. Black people still waiting on my book for free. People that I grew up with. We always talking about support black, support black, support black. One person even that I know even told me done had my book on layaway since it came out. My book's been out for almost a year and a half, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. I mean, the book's $20. Walmart don't even give you a layaway that long. And, you know, other folks, you know, I am getting a free copy, huh? And that answer's no. You know, others who said, let me know when it comes out. I'm going to support you. Let them know. Okay, I'll give you a call back. And I mean, I'm not complaining because I know how people are. I know what they do. I know how they think. But I'm just saying, stop coming to me talking about pro-black, I'm black, support each other. And you become a ghost when it comes time to support. We don't support each other with our dollars for nothing unless it's foolishness. We don't support anything that's viable. That's why the hair weave places pop up all over our communities. That's why all the fried chicken places pop up in our communities. Because that's the type of stuff we go support. That's why the nail salons then. And I'm not saying women shouldn't do the things to make themselves attractive. I'm just saying we will go spend money on looking good, but we won't go spend money to find out how to do good. And so, any of those other groups, like we have Black History Month. And over the years, I've heard many blacks complain why they give us the shortest month of the year. Well, to give you a little history lesson, it wasn't a month in the beginning anyway. It was a week. It was called Negro History Week, started by Carter G. Woodson. And when Gerald Ford, that evil Republican, got in office, he said 1 week is not enough for us to celebrate the accomplishments of our black brothers and sisters. He said, so I'm going to expand it to a full month. And then at that time, the moniker changed to Black History Month from Negro History Week. So that's your history lesson for today. And so we have a month. And now we're just finishing up the month of June. And everybody knows what the month of June is. Pride Month. And I'm not putting anybody down. I'm not doing that at all. But how can your choice, how can you get a whole month and try to equate your choice with my birthright, with my skin color, something I was actually born with? No, you were not born that way. You chose to be that way. And I know people get mad all the time. You know, I'm not spewing hate. I'm just telling you the truth. And that's the thing we hate, the truth. You know, that's all you have to do to get people moving in a direction to get you silenced and things like that. Oh, he or she hurt my feelings. He or she's attacking me. No, I'm not attacking you. I'm just telling you, your choice doesn't equate to the way I was born, to the color, the skull of my skin. And they take the rainbow symbol as a way to mock God. Y'all don't even realize that. Because the rainbow was a symbol of a covenant God made with Noah after the flood. So the rainbow symbol is to mock God. And they call it Pride Month. And when I read in that book called the Bible that black people are starting to reject more and more, and then they wonder why things not improving. Like I said, I just did a talk with 360 Degree Ministries where I get into that a little bit more. But the more we reject that, the more we don't understand why things are happening to us the way they're happening. You know, we keep thinking God is not looking after us, and we've been trying to follow him. We've been following him all. No, we've been following religion. And we've been following man. And we've been following these faulty charlatans in the pulpits. But the Bible said pride, I'm going to say that again, pride comes before the fall. Pride comes before destruction, depending on which translation you're reading. But so any of these groups that we're fighting for, we're trying to fight with, we're trying to stand with, are any of them addressing our issues? The better question is, are they even concerned with our issues? They're only concerned with our issues when they're trying to get their agenda passed. And as soon as they get their agenda passed, they don't even know you anymore. Everybody wants to jump on our bandwagon to get their agenda passed. And as soon as we help them, they abandon us. Because we're giving people to other people. We don't give to each other. And like I said, think back to what I said earlier about my book. And I know a lot of these same people who wanted my book for free. My book came out before Michelle Obama's book. But some of these same folks who want my book for free went out and bought Michelle Obama's book. And you can probably say, well, shit, they supporting black folks. They're never going to personally know Michelle Obama. They personally know me. Michelle Obama's already filthy rich. But we like to be caught up in that code of personality. I'm part of the crowd. I got Michelle Obama's book. Don't nobody know Myron Jones. So it don't matter if I get it. And all they want is a copy of my book, autographed and signed, so they can put it on their shelf and say, I know him personally. That's when they want to say, I know an author, but they don't want to pay money to the author to say, I know the author. Because in that book, I talk about every single issue that's plaguing us, our neighborhoods, our communities, and our families as a people. Which leads me to the next question I'm going to ask. Are the schools in your community still substandard compared to those that are in supposed better neighborhoods? That's another reason a lot of you moved out. You said the schools were better, but you pro-black. You know, I live in Houston Independent School District zoning area. And a lot of these people are complaining about Houston Independent School District. But a lot of these people took their kids out of the district where their kids would have to go to the Houston Independent School District. And oh, this is a big one right here. Whoo, this is a big one. Are the churches in your community doing true outreach? Or are they just reaching out their hands for your money? And all you got to do is find a black church in a black neighborhood and then just look at the 5-mile radius in that area. And I know where I live. I actually pulled up Google Maps one day and the aerial view. Within not even 5 miles of my house, within a 1 mile radius, a 4 square mile area, 1 mile in each direction. I mean, so just think about 1 mile and maybe 1.5 mile each direction. Maybe. 42 black churches. 42. And our community leaves a lot to be desired. So are those churches really helping the less fortunate? If they're not, where's your money going every week? And one of the things that we hear all the time is we take all of this money as black people, put it in all of these coffers of the black churches. Then our pastors or the treasurer or the secretary takes all of that money that's collected in the coffers and they go deposit it in a white owned bank, and that same bank will not turn around and give you a loan for anything. But then we want to sit there and think we're doing good. Do the churches in your community look just like the world outside of the church? And I mean, just look at the area around where your church is located, or the church you attend, the black church. Do you see anything going on in these churches that's been beneficial to the community, other than these pastors get up in there dancing in the pulpit, doing a whole lot of screaming, saying a whole lot of nothing? Do you see any benefit outside of the walls of that church, the 4 walls of that church? Are you seeing it? You know, just something for you to think about. Does your pastor, and these two groups actually are a cohesive unit, acting like they don't know each other before election time, but does your pastor allow politicians to come in and address the congregation during election time? Because the politician or one of the minions will call the office and tell them, you know, we'll do something for you in your church, if you could just steer your congregation in my direction. But they doing something, they putting some money in the pastor's pocket. But the church and the neighborhood around the church, not seeing any benefit. And you need to start questioning that. And if your church allows something like that, you might need to look for another church. Does your pastor, and this another one, your afternoon and evening services, your pastor and wife week-long anniversary services, where all the money goes to the pastor and wife? Does your pastor allow visiting pastors to come in and fleece you? Carter G. Woodson was hard on that issue right there. Stop letting these, I heard one pastor say up out of New York, he said, stop letting other pastors and stop bringing other pastors in your church and allowing them to take your people's money. And because they sit there and do it with all that screaming and all that sweat on their face, and they start shaking, and they doing that. They doing the dancing for the women, because the women are going to give more than the men. They do that to get the women's emotional strings going, because they know once they stir the lust in those women in that congregation, them women gonna come out their purse with all they rent up to their rent money, their mortgage, and then they'll be looking for somebody to help them. They, like they post on social media, I need a man to help me pay these bills, because they done gave all their money to the pastor. And then if she does find a man that comes in and gets in a relationship with it, and he start asking, well, where's your money going? And then when he find out that money's going to the church, it's going to be some issues. If he's a man, specimens don't have that issue, because they're going to just bag down and let the woman do whatever she wants to do. But men ain't gonna go for that. You're not going to take your money and be giving it to this other dude who's acting like an absentee husband. But you got to stop letting these people manipulate you. Your politicians are taking your loyalty. Your pastors are taking your loyalty. And none of them are delivering anything back to you. I mean, they're not even giving you, Vaseline. Do you see any of your weekly or bi-weekly giving going toward improving anything in your neighborhood or community other than the pastor or his family? And, I hear people all the time, well, you should take care of your man of God. You might want to read that New Testament again and really read it. I mean, I've never said we shouldn't give, but what they're teaching is not giving. What they're teaching is coveting. And I believe one of the 10 commandments said, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. And so what the pastors are doing in these churches is they're coveting. Pastors need to go find them a job. Or pastors need to start them a business. I was listening to a pastor that I respect highly, and he was talking about, we're so out of line with not taking care of our pastors now, because that's what that's what they did for the Levites. Well, see, that's a whole nother story. Levites were the only one of the 12 tribes that didn't get an inheritance. So the Levites had to be taken care of. And if these pastors were doing the exact same thing as the Levites, then I could say, yeah, they should be treated just as the Levites. But these guys ain't doing nothing like the Levites. No, nothing at all. And the Levitical priesthood is gone now, because Levitical priesthood came through that line where Moses is. And if you read in your New Testament, it says the old has been replaced with the new covenant when Christ came. So the Levitical priesthood is not valid anymore. And so Paul even said, when he was traveling, he said, I worked with my own hands to provide for me and the men who are traveling with me. You'll see maybe a couple of times, if I remember correctly, where Paul received money while he was traveling. And that wasn't even from the people he was delivering a message to. He said, because you don't place a burden on the people you're trying to help. Paul said, I worked with my hands. Christ told them disciples when he was getting ready to lead them, y'all better take some money. See, the first time when they went out, they had Christ, so they didn't have to worry about it because Christ had the treasurer with him named Judas. That's how Judas was able to steal that money all the time, because Christ had so much. And Christ took care of those men that were traveling with him. And when Christ called them again and said, it's almost time for me to go take care of my Father's business, he said, now when you go out, he said, you need to get you a sword and you need to take your own money to do the same work that they were doing before. Now, if the answers to even one of these questions, or most of them, are no, or in the negative, you must ask yourself, why are you still engaging with these people who are bringing nothing to the table other than emotional stuff and begging hands?